My name is Sienna Brooks, and I'm 27 years old. 3 weeks ago, my boyfriend stood in the middle of my living room, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "I'm blocking you for a week so you'll learn to appreciate me." I remember the way my stomach went cold before my brain caught up, the way his thumb hovered over his phone like he was about to launch a missile instead of press a button. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. Something in me just clicked. "Make it a month," I said. He blinked, thrown off script. "What?" "A week isn't enough." My voice sounded weirdly calm, even to me. "Make it a full month. I need that much time to really reflect." That wasn't the reaction he wanted. Logan, my boyfriend, 25, self-described content creator and full-time drama generator, had been dating me for about a year and a half. He'd moved into my apartment 8 months earlier, lease in my name, furniture mine, dishes, TV, couch, even the stupid diffuser that made the place smell like eucalyptus and guilt. Okay, that one was his idea, but I paid for it. At first, it had been good. Fun, even. He was charming in that fast-talking, always-on way, the kind of guy who could make a grocery run feel like a vlog episode. People loved him online. Hundreds of thousands of followers soaked up his relatable relationship skits and his funny boyfriend bits. Offline, when it was just us, he used to fall asleep halfway through movies and curl against me like I was home. But somewhere along the way, the bits stopped being just content. The games, the tests, the little manipulations he did for fun online started leaking into our actual life. Silent treatments, dramatic flounces, ultimatums he never expected me to take seriously. Last Tuesday, we'd had an argument. I honestly couldn't tell you the exact topic if my life depended on it. Something about me not texting back for 2 hours while I was in a work meeting. I'm an operations analyst. When I say I was in a meeting, it's not a euphemism. It's fluorescent lights, spreadsheets, and someone saying the word synergy with a straight face. He escalated fast. "You never prioritize me," he'd shouted, pacing in front of the coffee table. "I'm always the one making effort. I'm always the one reaching out." "I was in a meeting, Logan," I said, holding up my phone with the calendar still open. "My phone was on silent. You knew I had that call." "You always have an excuse." "It's not an excuse. It's literally what happened." That's when he crossed his arms, jaw tight, and delivered his grand decree. "You know what? I'm done. I'm blocking you for a week. Maybe then you'll learn to appreciate what you have." He said it like he was handing down a sentence from a throne only he could see. I just stared at him for a second. My heart was beating hard, but underneath the adrenaline, there was this quiet, level voice in my head. "Here it is, the moment you stop pretending this is normal." So I tested something. "Make it a month," I repeated. He faltered. I could see it. The confusion, the irritation, the flicker of panic when the script didn't run the way he'd rehearsed it in his head. Fine. A month then. Maybe you'll finally learn." "Sounds good," I said. He blocked my number right there, in front of me, like he wanted me to see the triumph on his face. Then he grabbed his backpack, muttered something about staying at a friend's place, so I could think about what I'd done, and walked out the door. The lock clicked behind him. I stood there in the sudden quiet, listening to the hum of the fridge and the faint traffic outside. 30 seconds, maybe less. Then I picked up my phone and opened a browser. Storage facilities near me. It felt almost like muscle memory. Maybe because this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this, just the first time I believed him when he told me who he was. I found a storage place I'd driven past a dozen times. Climate-controlled 5x10 unit, $89 a month, first month free with a promo code. Perfect. I booked it online. While I waited for the confirmation email, I walked through my apartment with a cardboard box in my arms, seeing everything through newly honest eyes. His clothes in my closet, his sneakers lined up by my front door, his cologne and beard trimmer on my bathroom counter, his gaming headset dangling off the arm of my couch. It was like spotting mold you'd been trying not to acknowledge. I started in the bedroom. T-shirts, hoodies, jeans, every piece of fabric that belonged to him went into boxes. I cleared his side of the dresser, the nightstand, that one drawer in the bathroom that had slowly filled with his stuff. I didn't rush, but I didn't stop either. Box after box after box. His books, his posters, his little decor touches he'd insisted on that never really fit. LED strip lights he never finished putting up. A ring light. The diffuser he loved. Every reminder of him went into cardboard. I'm not a monster. I organized everything. Clothes in one set of boxes, electronics carefully wrapped in towels, personal items in clearly labeled tubs. I left a path down the middle of the unit in my mind before I ever saw it, picturing him walking through, able to find his stuff easily. By 3 a.m., my hands were shaking with exhaustion, but my head was strangely clear. The apartment looked bare, lighter, the way it had been before his life spilled into every corner of mine. Thursday morning, I rented a U-Haul van, $39 for 4 hours. The guy behind the counter barely looked at me as he handed over the keys. He had no idea he was arming me with an exit strategy. I loaded everything myself. Box after box into the elevator, down to the parking lot, into the van. Sweat stuck my hair to my neck. My arms ached. At one point, I caught my reflection in the van window. Dark circles, messy bun, determination, and almost didn't recognize myself. Not weak, not dramatic, just done. The storage unit was cooler than outside, humming with fluorescent lights. I unlocked the roll-up door, slid it open, and arranged his whole life inside that 10-foot rectangle. Clothes on the left, boxes stacked on the right, the heavier stuff on the bottom. When I was finished, I stood in the doorway and took a picture for my own records. Evidence that I hadn't dumped his things on the curb or thrown them away. By 2 p.m. Thursday, my apartment was completely clear of his stuff. That afternoon, I called a locksmith, $120 to change the locks, but it felt like buying myself peace. "He have a key?" the locksmith asked casually as he worked. "Not anymore," I said. Friday, I went to my bank on my lunch break, opened a new checking account, switched my direct deposit, updated my online banking passwords. Logan didn't have access to my accounts, but he knew my main account number. He'd used it to send me money before, to make a show of helping with bills he never really paid. Better safe than sorry. The weekend was quiet. Weirdly, beautifully quiet. No random accusations from the next room. No dramatic sighs when I answered a text 2 minutes late. No walking on eggshells because I never knew which version of him I was going to get. I cleaned the apartment top to bottom, rearranged the furniture, moved the couch back to where I'd wanted it originally, not where he'd insisted it looked better for filming. I lit a candle that smelled like vanilla instead of his idea of masculine wood smoke. For the first time in months, the place felt like mine again. On Sunday, a coworker texted me. "Daniel. Hey, a few of us are grabbing coffee after work tomorrow. You in?" Daniel works in finance at my company. He's calm where Logan is loud, steady where Logan is erratic. I'd always kept that line firmly drawn, out of respect for my relationship. But I wasn't in a relationship anymore. Not really. Me. Sure, I could use coffee. I didn't tell him my boyfriend had blocked me for a month. I didn't tell him I'd moved an entire life into storage in 2 days. I just knew that when I looked around my clean, quiet apartment that night, I didn't miss Logan. Not even a little. And somewhere deep down, I knew the real war hadn't even started yet. Day 28 of my reflection period started like any other Monday. I was in the kitchen, rinsing out a mug, when my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. "Do you miss me?" I didn't need the contact name to know who it was. I could hear his voice in the words. Smug, expectant, certain that time and distance had softened me into something pliable again. I dried my hands on a dish towel and stared at the message for a long, quiet 30 seconds. Did I miss him? I thought about my apartment now, how it smelled like vanilla instead of his cologne, how I could hear my own thoughts without them being drowned out by his commentary or complaints. I thought about the way my shoulders didn't tense every time my phone vibrated. No, I didn't. Instead of answering the question he asked, I answered the one he didn't. I typed out the address of the storage facility, then the access code to the unit. Then, "Your stuff is in Unit 37. Rent is paid through the end of next month. After that, it's your responsibility. We're done." My thumb hovered over the send button for a heartbeat. Once, I would have imagined his reaction, his outrage, and softened my own response to preempt the drama. This time I didn't. Send. 3 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Different unknown number, then another, then another. I let them all go to voicemail. The notifications stacked up like a digital tantrum. "You're insane. We need to talk. You can't just throw me out like that. Pick up. Now." I blocked each number as it came in, methodical, almost bored. It was like swatting mosquitoes, annoying, but not dangerous as long as you didn't let them stay. That was 5 days ago. Since then, the direct hits from Logan slowed, but the ricochets started coming from other directions. The first was a group chat I never asked to be in. My phone buzzed while I was at my desk at work. I glanced at the screen. New group conversation, 6 numbers I didn't recognize. The messages started rolling in before I could mute it. You need to apologize to Logan. He's devastated. What you did is seriously messed up. Who just throws their boyfriend's stuff in storage without warning? Then, this is Sarah, by the way. I'm his friend. He's too hurt to confront you right now. I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. And right behind it, anger. Of course he didn't tell them he blocked me first. Of course he'd skipped the part where he'd given me a month to think about how I treat him. I let my thumb hover above the keyboard for a minute, trying to decide if it was even worth responding. Old me would have written out a whole essay defending myself, explaining the screenshots, the timeline, the manipulation, begging to be seen as reasonable and kind, even while I was bleeding. New me typed one message. He blocked me for a month to teach me a lesson. I used that time to move on. His choice. His consequences. There was a pause. Then, that's not what he said. He told us you blindsided him. He said you just kicked him out. You're twisting this. I could feel my pulse in my ears, but my fingers stayed steady. I'm not going to argue with you about my own life, I wrote. Believe whatever you want. I'm done. Then I left the group and blocked every single number in it. Not my circus, not my monkeys. 2 days later, my doorbell rang in the middle of a quiet Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home, hair in a low bun, laptop open on the coffee table. It was the kind of knock that already sounded angry. I checked the peephole and my stomach sank. A woman in her late 20s, same eyes as Logan, same stubborn set to her jaw. His sister. I opened the door just enough to keep the chains secure. We need to talk about what you did to my brother, she said, skipping hello entirely. No, I replied, we really don't. You kicked him out with no warning, she snapped, voice rising. He had to scramble to find somewhere to stay. You put his stuff in storage like trash and changed the locks. Who does that? I took a slow breath. He left on his own, I said. He said he was going to stay with a friend while he blocked me for a month. I just made sure his things had somewhere safe to be. That's not what he... This is my apartment, I cut in. My name on the lease. He was never on it. He never paid rent. He was a guest who pushed his luck until he found my limit. Her cheeks flushed a blotchy red. You're heartless. He loved you. He loved controlling me, I said quietly. There's a difference. For a second, her expression flickered. Doubt, maybe. Or maybe she recognized the word. Behind her, down the hall, I saw the building's security guard pause at the top of the stairs, watching. We're done here, I said and closed the door. She pounded on it for another 5 minutes, voice muffled but furious. Something about me regretting this, about what kind of woman just throws someone out like that. Security eventually escorted her out. I watched the cameras on the building's app, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to see the moment this particular storm passed. That night, I told Daniel about it. We were sitting in a small cafe near my office, the kind with too many plants and warm light that makes everyone look a little softer. So his sister came to your place? He asked, frowning. That's a lot. I stirred my coffee. Yeah, she said I was heartless. What did you say? That I'm done being his lesson, I said. He wanted to teach me something. I learned. Daniel watched me for a long moment, then leaned back. Good, he said. Good for you. The simplicity of it made my throat tight. No questions about whether I'd overreacted. No subtle hints that maybe I should hear Logan out. Just acceptance. We'd been out a few times now. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a movie night. It was still new, still careful, but it was easy. In a way I'd almost forgotten relationships could be. When I finally told him the full story, leaving out names but not details, he listened, then said, I'm glad you have boundaries. Most people would have caved the second he cried. I used to, I admitted. A week after his sister's visit, my phone lit up with another unfamiliar number. Hey, it's Chris. Can we grab a drink? I want to talk about what happened with you and Logan. Chris was one of the only friends of Logan's I'd actually liked. Quiet, thoughtful, the kind of guy who didn't perform for the cameras when Logan was filming. If anyone deserved to hear my side, it was him. We met at a bar Thursday night. It was dim and loud enough to give us privacy. He didn't waste time. He's saying you blindsided him, Chris said, hands wrapped around his beer. That one day things were fine and the next his stuff was gone. That doesn't sound like you. That's not how it happened, I said. So I told him. Not the dramatized version, not the TikTok-ready one Logan would have spun, but the boring, brutal truth. The argument, the blocking, the I'm going to teach you a lesson speech, my make it a month, the storage unit, the locks, the calls, the group chats, his sister. Chris stared at his drink for a while after I finished. He blocked you first, he said finally. For a month, I confirmed. That was his rule. I just took him seriously. He shook his head, a humorless laugh escaping. He left out that part. Of course he did. He's telling everyone you just snapped, Chris said, that you're punishing him because he called you out. I'm not punishing him, I said, feeling the exhaustion settle into my bones. I'm enforcing a boundary. He made a choice. I made mine. I'm not going back. I get that, Chris said after a beat. But did you have to put all his stuff in storage? That's pretty cold. I lifted an eyebrow. What should I have done? Let it sit in my apartment for a month while he ghosted me from 2 blocks away? Wait around to see if I was forgiven enough to get my own life back? He sighed. Fair point. He has the address. He has the code. I paid for 2 months. That's more courtesy than he ever gave me. He wants you back, you know, Chris said. He keeps saying if he could just talk to you, you'd understand. I do understand, I said softly. That's why I'm done. Later that night, a new number popped up on my screen. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you. Please just talk to me. My thumb hovered over the block button for exactly 1 second. Then I pressed it. In the weeks that followed, the silence between his outbursts stretched a little longer each time. 5 days. 7. 10. Between them, my life started to look normal. I worked. I had dinner with friends. Daniel and I went on 3 more dates. When I told him about the latest round of messages, he shook his head and said, he's not used to you walking away. People like that count on you staying. He was right. Logan's blocking thing wasn't new. He'd done it before, blocking me for a day or two, then unblocking me, expecting me to be desperate, apologetic, grateful for his magnanimous decision to give us another chance. This time I just didn't play. One evening, an old mutual friend texted me. Just a heads up, Logan's dad is talking about coming over to have a word with you. He's pissed. Says you ruined his son's life. I stared at the message, feeling my pulse thrum low and steady instead of spiking. Of course, when all else fails, bring in the reinforcements. I typed back. Thanks for the warning. Then I put my phone down, walked to my front door, and looked at the new lock. Let him come, I murmured to the empty apartment. This time, I have receipts. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't afraid of the knock I knew was coming. The knock came on a Tuesday evening. Not frantic, not timid, heavy, adult, purposeful. The kind of knock a man uses when he believes he is unquestionably in the right. I'd just finished chopping vegetables for dinner when the sound rolled through my apartment. The knife paused midair. I knew before I even walked to the door who it had to be. Logan's father. I wiped my hands on a towel, steadied my breathing, and opened the door. A man in his 60s stood there, broad-shouldered, graying hair, stern expression carved from years of disappointment he was probably used to misdirecting at other people. He looked me up and down, eyes hard. You the woman who was dating my son? He demanded. Dated, I corrected quietly. Past tense. He exhaled sharply through his nose, like that one word offended him personally. We need to talk about how you treated him. I could have shut the door. Should have, maybe. But after weeks of being painted as the villain in a story I hadn't even written, something inside me uncoiled. Come in, I said. His eyebrows lifted slightly. He hadn't expected that, but he stepped inside. I gestured toward the couch. Before you say anything, I said, do you want to hear my side, or is this more of a lecture? I know what happened, he said. Logan told us everything. Everything? I repeated softly. Because that was the thing. Logan always did tell everything, except the parts where he was at fault. You kicked him out, his father said. Changed the locks. Put his belongings in storage like they were garbage, after everything he did for you. I actually laughed, not loud, but in disbelief. Did he tell you why? He crossed his arms. Because you weren't appreciating him, because you ignored him, because you were controlling. There it was, the recycled narrative. Always the same script. Woman isn't who he imagined. Woman becomes the villain. Woman must be punished until she breaks. I didn't grab for the screenshots immediately. I wanted him to hear it first. Your son blocked me, I said, for a month. His father blinked. He did what? He told me he was blocking me for a week so I'd learn to appreciate him. I told him to make it a month. He did. Then he left. With his key. With his pride. With zero indication that he'd be back. You're telling me he blocked you first, the man said slowly. Yes. I reached for my phone. And I have proof. I scrolled, found the screenshots, and handed him the device. He read in silence. The first message? Logan declaring a week-long block. My reply, make it a month. His fine. Maybe you'll learn your lesson. the timestamp where he actually hit the block button. When he looked up again, his face wasn't angry anymore. It was tired, heavy. He said you were ignoring him, that he had no choice. He lied, I said softly. The old man sank into the couch as though someone had pulled the bones out of him. This isn't the first time, he murmured. His last girlfriend said something similar, and the one before that. The testing, the blocking, the dramatics. He rubbed his temples. We tried to talk to him about it. His mother and I. We thought he'd grown out of it. He didn't, I said. He looked around my apartment slowly, taking in the neatly arranged shelves, the quiet, the absence of chaos. This is all yours? He asked. The lease, the furniture. All mine. He moved in 8 months ago. He never paid rent. He wasn't on the lease. His father blew out a breath and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. She told us you kicked him out without warning, that you blindsided him. I gave him the month he asked for, I said. I just took him seriously, that's all. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, I'm sorry. Quiet. Deep. A father's apology for a son who refused to learn. I didn't come here to fight you, he continued. I came here expecting to defend him, but now, I think you did the right thing. He needs to learn actions have consequences. Something in my chest loosened. Not relief exactly, but validation I didn't realize I'd been craving. He stood. She's still staying at our house, he said. Still telling everyone you'll apologize any day now, that you'll come crawling back. That's not happening. I didn't think so. He nodded once firmly, then let himself out. I locked the door behind him and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. For the first time in months, the story wasn't being twisted around my throat. But the calm didn't last long. 2 days later, chaos arrived at my workplace. I was in a conference room discussing quarterly projections when someone knocked on the door. My boss's assistant stepped inside, looking uncomfortable. Sienna, I'm sorry, but there's someone in the lobby insisting they need to speak with you. She's causing a scene. My heart sank. Is it a blonde woman, crying? The assistant nodded. Great, just great. I excused myself and walked down the hallway. As soon as the lobby came into view, I saw her. Logan's ex-girlfriend? No. His sister again? No. Worse. His mother? No, not even. It was him. Logan. His eyes were swollen, his face blotchy, his hair an unwashed nest. He was crying loudly, loud enough to draw the eyes of every employee in the lobby. People were pretending not to stare. Security hovered nearby. Sienna, he sobbed when he saw me. Please, please, we need to talk. No, I said, we really don't. We can fix this, he begged. I made a mistake. I should never have blocked you. I was just upset. I love you. I love you so much. Security took a few steps closer. Logan, I said, voice low and sharp, you need to leave. Now. Or I'm calling the police for trespassing. His face snapped from pleading to outraged in half a second. You can't just throw away what we had. You threw it away when you blocked me, I said. I'm done. Leave. He lunged forward like he wanted to grab my arm. Security stepped between us immediately. Sir, it's time to go. You're making a mistake, he shouted as they guided him toward the doors. You'll regret this. You always ruin everything. Every word echoed off the lobby walls. Every pair of eyes burned into my back. When the doors finally closed behind him, the silence felt louder than his screaming. An hour later, my boss called me into his office. He wasn't angry, just concerned. Do you want to explain what just happened? So I did. The bare bones truth. The relationship. The blocking. The storage unit. The harassment. The sister. The father. The weeks of new numbers and unwanted messages. He listened without interrupting. Finally, he said, if he comes here again, we'll file a restraining order as a company. But you need to take steps on your end as well. It's starting to affect the workplace. I understand, I said, and I did. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. $250 for the consultation, $350 to draft and send a cease and desist. Certified mail, addressed to Logan and his parents. The letter laid out everything. The blocking, the harassment, the appearance at my workplace, the repeated attempts to contact me through alternate numbers. It also stated clearly, any further contact, direct or indirect, would result in legal action. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt done. Daniel came over that night with takeout. When I told him what happened, he wrapped an arm around my shoulders. You did the right thing, he said. He crossed a line. I know, I whispered. But even knowing that, I couldn't shake the feeling that Logan wasn't finished. Not yet. And I was right, because the next storm was already forming. Quiet, petty, and somehow even more exhausting than the ones before. The cease and desist letter worked, mostly. For a while, everything went quiet. Blessedly quiet. No new numbers, no crying voicemails, no siblings pounding on my door demanding explanations. But Logan was the kind of man who didn't know how to accept an ending unless he wrote it himself. So, when he realized he could no longer reach me directly, he started clawing at the edges of my life instead. It began with a call from the storage facility. "Hi, Ms. Brooks," the manager said politely. "We're calling because your ex-partner, he's disputing the charges for his unit." I paused mid-email, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Disputing how? "He claims he never authorized his belongings to be stored with us, that you placed them here illegally. He's asking us to waive all charges and release the items immediately." Of course he was. I inhaled slowly. "Do you need documentation?" "Please," the manager said. I emailed them everything right then. The screenshots, the timeline, the text where I'd sent Logan the unit number, the code, the payment confirmation. Within the hour, they wrote back, "Thanks, Ms. Brooks. We're siding with you. The unit is his responsibility now. If he doesn't pay, the contents will go to auction per standard policy." I read that last line twice. Auction. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I didn't feel vindicated. I only felt tired. 2 days later, Logan's friend Sarah, the one who'd spammed me in the group chat, messaged from another new number. "You're really going to let all his stuff get sold? What is wrong with you? He can't afford storage right now." "He had 2 months paid for," I replied. "I gave him time. What happens now is on him." Her response came instantly, like she'd been waiting to attack. "You're cruel, heartless. He trusted you." Block. Another number appeared minutes later. Another friend. Another accusation. "You're punishing him. You broke him. You ruined his stability." Block, block, block. My thumb was numb from the repetition. By Friday, the storage facility called again. "Just a courtesy update, Ms. Brooks. The unit is scheduled for auction next month. We wanted to give you a chance to remove anything of yours before then." "There's nothing of mine in there," I said. "All right, just keeping you informed." I hung up, leaned back on my couch, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in that 10-foot space were pieces of Logan's life. Clothes, books, little trinkets he'd insisted I admire, electronics he'd sworn were crucial to his brand. They were important enough to clutter my apartment once, but apparently not important enough for him to retrieve now. Not unless someone else did the work for him. I wasn't that person anymore. That weekend, Daniel came over with groceries and a bottle of red wine. We spent the evening cooking together, something simple, pasta with garlic and tomatoes. The kind of meal that fills an apartment with comforting warmth. While we ate, he asked, "Do you ever feel bad about any of it?" I twirled a strand of pasta on my fork, thinking. "Bad?" I repeated. "You know, the storage unit thing, moving him out so quickly." "What should I have done?" I asked quietly. "Let his stuff sit in my apartment for months while he decided whether I was worth unblocking?" Daniel considered this. "Fair point." "He wanted to teach me a lesson," I said. "I just showed him I was willing to learn." He reached across the table, brushing his fingers lightly over mine. "You chose yourself. There's nothing wrong with that." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear those words until they settled inside me like a warm stone. The next shock came from an unexpected source. Logan's father. He called on a Tuesday afternoon, his number appearing in my missed call list. When I answered, his tone was gentler this time. "I just wanted to apologize again," he said, "for what my son put you through." "You don't owe me an apology," I said. "Maybe not," he replied, "but I feel I should warn you. He's talking about taking you to small claims court." "For what?" I asked, genuinely baffled. "Emotional distress. Property damage. Something absurd. He's frustrated." "Let him try," I said. "I have everything documented." "I know," he sighed. "I believe you. I just didn't want it blindsiding you." "Thank you," I murmured. "Really?" He hesitated. "My wife and we've been trying to convince him to get therapy. He refuses. Says everyone else is the problem." That sounded painfully familiar. "If it helps," I said softly. "I don't hate him. I just can't fix him." "I know," the man said. "And I'm sorry you ever felt like you had to try." We hung up. I stared at my phone long after the call ended, a strange ache in my chest. It wasn't love, or regret, or hope. It was grief, for the person I used to be, for the version of me that tolerated the intolerable because she believed chaos was normal. The next day, a mutual friend texted me. "Just wanted to say, I heard the full story from several people now. You were right to leave. He's done this to every girlfriend he's ever had." My throat tightened. "He's dating someone new already," the message continued, telling her all about his abusive ex. Good luck to her, I guess. I stared at the screen, exhaling slowly. People who knew the truth believed me. People who didn't matter. A week later, the storage facility called for the final time. The auction is scheduled for next Friday, the manager said. Just letting you know. Thank you, I replied. After hanging up, I sat in the quiet of my clean, sunlit living room. No diffuser, no LED lights, no storm cloud energy hovering in the corners. Just peace. Daniel joined me on the couch, resting a hand on my knee. You okay? I am, I said, and realized I meant it. We'd signed a new lease together the week before. Equal rent, equal responsibility. A fresh start neither of us had rushed into. He squeezed my hand gently. You're really free now. I nodded. The final update came into my mind unbidden, a quiet conclusion I hadn't realized I'd been writing all along. After everything, I understood something important. The moment Logan said, I'm blocking you to teach you a lesson, he told me exactly who he was. And the moment I said, make it a month, I finally told him who I was becoming. Someone who doesn't chase people who run. Someone who doesn't beg for the bare minimum. Someone who chooses peace over chaos. Self-respect over manipulation. Truth over theatrics. Someone who walks away without looking back when the door finally swings open. Logan played a stupid game, and he won a stupid prize. I didn't ruin him. He ruined himself. And me? I just moved on.